So I'm going to make pizza, probably the most popular food to make in the wood-fired oven. And pizza as we know it can be traced back to the 18th century. But even with all that history, it still remains a beautifully simple and delicious food to make in the oven. And I want to share with you all the advice and techniques that I've picked up and everything I've learned from experience. And I'm going to put that into 4 parts. Part 1 is going to be about tools, equipment, and how I prepare the oven. Then in part 2, I'm going to make some pizza dough. Following that, in part 3, I'm going to show you how I set up my pizza station, including all the ingredients and toppings that are popular with my family and friends. And then finally, in part 4, once I have everything ready, I'm going to make some pizzas. So let's start with tools and oven prep. First, there's the long handle small peel, the most amazing tool for the wood-fired oven. And apart from being the wood-fired oven workhorse, I use this for turning the pizzas when they're in the oven and then taking them out when they're done. Next is the brush. And pizza is one of those foods you're going to cook directly on the oven floor, so you want to try and keep it as clean as possible. I'll start by brushing as much ash as I can off the floor. And then I like to wrap a damp cloth around the peel, give the floor a wipe, and then I know that the oven is ready to use. If you use your oven a lot, you've probably come to rely more on instinct when it comes to oven temperature. But if you want to really accurately measure the temperature of your oven, then a digital gauge will do that for you. The ideal temperature for me in the center of the oven floor is around 750 Fahrenheit, that's 400 degrees centigrade. Then there's the classic pizza peel. You can get these in either metal or wood. And then rather than build my pizzas on my work surface and then pull them onto the peel, I much prefer to build my pizzas on my peel, and then when they're ready, I slip them into the oven. Then I have my pizza trays, and I use these for placing and cutting my pizzas on once they come out of the oven. And then I actually keep a couple of pizza cutters, primarily because I like to use a separate cutter for the vegetarian and the meat pizzas. Once you've balled up your dough, you're going to need to let it rest and rise in a proofing tray. Trays like these can be found online or at a local restaurant supply store. Alternatively, you can use a roasting pan and then just cover that with a damp cloth. Or you can simply use a baking tray and cover that with some plastic. And then when I'm ready to begin shaping my pizzas, I'll use a dough scraper to remove each one from the tray. So now I want to move on to oven preparation. I like to fire my oven up at least 2 hours before I'm going to use it. That gives enough time for the heat to penetrate the floor and the dome of the oven, and for the dome to go clear. When I'm making pizza in the oven, I put the fire to the side. It doesn't matter which side, but the right side is comfortable for me. You do this because pizza cooks very, very quickly, so you need to keep an eye on it, especially the side that's facing the fire. If you don't rotate the pizza, then it's going to cook unevenly. I find if the fire is in the back of the oven and the pizza is facing away from you, then it's harder to see it cooking, and I think less obvious when to turn it. Also, with the fire to the side, you have the full depth of the oven to work with, and that's useful if you're cooking multiple pizzas at one time. So I like to keep enough of a fire going that it creates this gentle flame roll over the dome of the oven. That's going to go towards cooking the top of my pizza. Then throughout the time I'm using the oven, I'll add logs as necessary to keep the fire going and to maintain that flame roll. In part 4, I'm going to go into a lot more detail about how pizzas cook in the oven. So that's the equipment and tools I use and how I prepare my oven. Next, in part 2, I'm going to show you the dough that I like to make.